What you are about to hear was never meant to be spoken aloud. These are not theories. These are not suggestions. These are the exact psychological weapons that kings used to crush rebellions, that advisors whispered into the ears of emperors before entire nations fell, that silent men in dark rooms have used to control outcomes you never even knew were being decided. I have hesitated to release this, because once you understand these tactics, you cannot unlearn them. And once you see how they operate in the world around you, you will never look at a conversation, a negotiation, a relationship, or even a glance across the room the same way again. This is not self-help. This is not motivation. This is the architecture of human control, stripped bare. Now, before we go any further, I need you to do something. I need you to subscribe to this channel. And I am not asking you casually. I am asking you with intention. Because the man who finds a source of knowledge like this and walks away without securing it, without bookmarking it in his life, is the same man who will forget what he learned here by tomorrow. He will return to his distractions. He will remain asleep while others who watched this video, who subscribed, who committed, will move forward with weapons he refused to pick up. Do not be that man. Subscribe now. Not later. Not after you see if the content is good enough. Now. Because hesitation is the first sign of a man who is not ready for power. And if you are still here, you are ready. So act like it. Let us begin with a question that most men never ask themselves. Why do some people seem to effortlessly command rooms, negotiations, and even the emotions of others, while the rest spend their entire lives reacting, adjusting, apologizing, and wondering why they never seem to get what they want? The answer is not charisma. It is not luck. It is not even intelligence in the way most people define it. The answer is knowledge. Specific, dangerous, ancient knowledge that has been deliberately hidden from public discourse because those who hold power do not want competition. Machiavelli understood this 5 centuries ago. He watched princes rise and fall. He studied the mechanics of influence like a surgeon studies the body. And what he discovered was so potent, so ruthless, that his very name became a word for cunning. But even Machiavelli did not publish everything he knew. Some things, he only whispered. Tonight, I am going to whisper them to you. Tactic number 1. The art of strategic absence. There was a duke in 15th century Italy who understood something that most men never grasp. His name is not important. What matters is what he did. At the height of his influence, when every noble in the region wanted his favor, when his presence at any gathering was considered a blessing, he vanished. Not dramatically. Not with announcements or fanfare. He simply stopped appearing. Invitations went unanswered. Meetings were declined through intermediaries. Weeks passed. And something remarkable happened. His value multiplied in his absence. Where once his presence was expected, it became craved. Where once his opinion was requested, it became desperately sought. The nobles who had treated him as an equal began to treat him as something more. Because human psychology operates on a brutal principle that most people refuse to accept. What is always available becomes invisible. What is rare becomes sacred. Think about this in your own life. Think about the people whose attention you always have access to. Think about how you treat them. Now think about the people who are difficult to reach, who do not always respond, whose time feels scarce. Notice the difference in how your mind assigns value. This is not a flaw in your character. This is the operating system of human desire. And the man who understands this system can program it. But here is where most men fail. They hear this principle and they think the solution is to play games, to ignore texts, to act busy when they are not. That is not strategic absence. That is insecure manipulation, and it always gets exposed. True strategic absence requires that you actually become someone whose time is genuinely valuable. It requires that you fill your absence with growth, with building, with becoming the man whose return is worth waiting for. The Duke did not disappear to play games. He disappeared to consolidate power in silence. And when he returned with leverage that could not be questioned. Ask yourself right now, when you are absent from someone's life, do they feel relief or longing? If the answer is relief, you have work to do. If the answer is longing, you are beginning to understand. Comment below with one word. Presence. If you have been giving away your availability too freely, let me see who among you is ready to reclaim the power of your own attention. Tactic number 2. The weapon of withheld validation. There is a hunger inside every human being that is more powerful than the desire for food, for safety, sometimes even for love. It is the hunger to be seen, to be acknowledged, to be told, explicitly or implicitly, that one matters. And the man who controls access to this validation controls more than he realizes. Consider a story from the court of Louis XIV. The Sun King built an entire system of control at Versailles based on this single principle. Nobles who had once commanded armies, who owned lands larger than some countries, would spend their entire days waiting for a glance from the king. A nod, a word, an invitation to hold the candle while he dressed. These men, these powerful men, were reduced to children seeking approval because Louis understood that validation is a currency more potent than gold. Now, I am not telling you to become cruel. I am not telling you to withhold affection from those who deserve it. What I am telling you is to become aware of how freely you distribute this currency. Because most men give validation away like beggars throwing coins. They compliment reflexively. They agree habitually. They nod and smile and affirm constantly because they are terrified of social discomfort. And in doing so, they make their approval worthless. The man who rarely compliments but whose compliments, when given, feel like sunlight breaking through clouds. That man holds power. The man who does not rush to agree, who sits in silence while others scramble to fill it, who waits until his words carry weight before he speaks. That man is listened to differently, not because he is playing a game, but because he has made his validation scarce, and scarcity creates value. Here is the dangerous part. This tactic can be used for genuine influence or for destruction. The narcissist uses withheld validation to create trauma bonds, to keep victims chasing approval that never fully comes. That is abuse. But the strategic man uses this principle differently. He withholds cheap validation so that his real validation means something. He refuses to debase the currency of his attention so that when he does invest it, the investment is felt. Think about someone in your life whose approval you desperately wanted. A father, perhaps. A mentor. A woman who seemed just out of reach. Remember how hard you worked for their acknowledgement. Remember how their rare praise stayed with you for years while the easy compliments of others faded in hours. That is the power we are discussing. That is the weapon most men never learn to wield. And if you are watching this right now, if you are still here, it means something inside you recognizes the value of what is being shared. That recognition is the first step toward transformation. But recognition without action is just entertainment. So I'm going to ask you again. Subscribe to this channel. Because the man who refuses to commit to his own growth, who keeps one foot out the door even when he finds something valuable, is the same man who will spend his life almost becoming who he was meant to be. Do not be an almost. Subscribe. Stay. Learn. Execute. Tactic number 3. The principle of controlled unpredictability. There is a reason why the most dangerous animals in the wild are not the largest or the strongest. They are the ones you cannot predict. The snake that might strike or might retreat. The tiger whose eyes give no indication of its next move. Predictability is safety, yes. But predictability is also weakness. Because the moment someone can predict your patterns, they can control your outcomes. Machiavelli observed this in the military leaders he studied. The generals who won against superior forces were never the ones with the best weapons or the most men. They were the ones whose strategies could not be anticipated. They would retreat when expected to advance. They would show mercy when everyone expected slaughter. They would go silent when provocation demanded response. And in that unpredictability, their enemies became paralyzed. Because you cannot prepare for what you cannot predict. Now translate this into your daily life. Think about your routines. Think about how you respond to conflict, to flattery, to insult. Are you predictable? Does your partner know exactly which buttons to press to get exactly which reaction? Does your employer know precisely how much they can demand before you push back? Do the people in your life have you mapped like a familiar road they have driven 1,000 times? If the answer is yes, you have surrendered strategic advantage without even realizing it. The man who occasionally responds to provocation with silence instead of anger. The man who sometimes walks away from situations he would normally fight. The man whose generosity appears randomly rather than on schedule. This man keeps others slightly off balance. Not in a way that creates fear or distrust, but in a way that commands respect. Because respect, at its core, is the acknowledgement that someone cannot be easily categorized, cannot be easily dismissed, cannot be easily controlled. But here is the trap. Some men hear this and they become chaotic. They think unpredictability means being erratic, unreliable, unstable. That is not power. That is weakness dressed in chaos. Controlled unpredictability means having a solid foundation that people can trust, but introducing enough variation in your responses that they cannot take you for granted. It means being dependable in your values but variable in your tactics. The snake is predictable in one way. It will protect itself. But you never know exactly how. That is the balance. That is the art. I want you to think right now about one pattern you have that has been used against you. One predictable response that someone in your life has exploited. Type it in the comments. Not for me. For you. Because naming it is the first step to breaking it. Tactic number 4. The seduction of the unfinished. There is a reason why the stories that haunt us most are the ones that never ended. The relationship that dissolved without closure. The project that was abandoned halfway. The conversation that was interrupted before the point was made. The human mind despises incompleteness. It will chase resolution like a starving man chases bread. And the one who understands this can lead minds wherever he wishes. This principle has a name in psychology. It is called the Zeigarnik effect. But Machiavelli understood it centuries before any psychologist was born. He watched how princes would keep their promises vague, their intentions unclear, their rewards always just slightly out of reach. And he saw how this incompleteness created obsessive loyalty in those who chased the finish line that kept moving. Let me tell you about a merchant in Venice who built an empire on this principle. He never fully explained his methods to his apprentices. He gave them pieces, fragments, enough to make them effective but never enough to make them independent. And rather than resenting him, they worshipped him. Because each fragment felt like a gift. Each lesson felt like progress toward a mastery that was always one more secret away. He had them bound not by contract or fear, but by incompleteness. They could not leave because leaving would mean abandoning the puzzle before finding the final piece. Now, I am not telling you to withhold from those who deserve your full knowledge and support. But I am telling you to understand how powerful the unfinished truly is. In conversations, the man who always says everything is the man who is quickly forgotten. But the man who leaves you leaning in, who ends his point just before the revelation, who creates space for your mind to fill in what was not said, that man occupies your thoughts long after he has left the room. In relationships, the partner who has revealed every corner of themselves in the first month has no mystery left. But the one who still has depths unexplored after years, who still surprises, who still has chambers you have not entered, that partner holds an attention that the fully known can never command. This does not mean being deceptive. It means being deep. It means having so much substance that you could not possibly reveal it all at once, and being wise enough not to try. Think about this video itself. Think about why you are still watching. Is it not because each tactic promises another after it? Is it not because the structure of 10 creates an incompleteness that your mind wants to resolve? You are experiencing this principle right now. And the fact that you recognize it does not diminish its power. Because understanding a spell does not always break it. Tactic number 5. The mirror of calculated agreement. There is no faster way to someone's trust than to become their reflection. Human beings are drawn irresistibly to those who seem to understand them, who seem to share their views, who seem to validate their existence through agreement. And the master manipulator knows how to become that mirror without ever compromising his own vision. This is not about being a sycophant. The man who agrees with everything is despised, because his agreement carries no weight. What I am describing is surgical. It is the art of finding the specific points of true agreement, emphasizing them, building rapport on them, while quietly maintaining independence on the points that truly matter. Machiavelli advised princes to let men believe that their ideas were the prince's ideas. To let them feel heard, understood, validated. Not because the prince was weak, but because he understood that a man who feels understood will open doors he would never open for a stranger. He will share secrets. He will lower defenses. He will walk into vulnerabilities he would otherwise protect. Consider how this works in negotiation. The amateur negotiator enters arguing. He presents his position and defends it against attack. But the master enters agreeing. He finds every possible point of common ground and amplifies it. He makes the other party feel like they are on the same team. And only once that rapport is established, only once the defenses are down, does he begin to gently steer toward his true objective. By then, the other party is so invested in the alliance that they will often concede ground just to preserve the connection. But here is the shadow side of this tactic. It can become a prison. The man who mirrors too well can lose himself. He can become so skilled at reflecting others that he forgets his own shape. This is the fate of many chameleons. They win every room and lose their own soul. The balance is this. Mirror strategically, but never mirror on matters of core identity. Agree on preferences, on observations, on minor matters of taste and opinion. But on questions of principle, on questions of who you truly are, stand firm even when standing firm costs you the rapport. Because the man who can be all things to all people is ultimately nothing to anyone, including himself. If you are watching this and you recognize yourself as someone who has lost their shape in the mirrors of others, comment the word reclaim. Let that be your declaration that the mirroring ends where your soul begins. And now we arrive at something I need to address directly. We are halfway through these 10 tactics, and some of you are still watching as guests. You are consuming this knowledge, nodding in recognition, perhaps even taking notes. But you have not subscribed. You are treating this like a single meal when it is meant to be a feast that continues. The knowledge in this video is one piece. There is more coming. There is always more. But I cannot give it to you if you disappear into the algorithm, if you wander off to be fed lesser things by channels that tell you only what feels comfortable. Subscribe. Right now. Because the man who cannot commit to a button cannot commit to his own transformation. And I would rather speak to a smaller audience of committed men than a larger crowd of tourists. Make your choice. Then let us continue. Tactic number 6. The poison of generous debt. This is the tactic that separates the strategist from the amateur. It is also the tactic that, misused, creates tyrants. So listen carefully. There is a particular kind of generosity that binds men more completely than any chain. It is the generosity that is given freely, without explicit expectation, but which creates an invisible debt that the recipient can never quite repay. Machiavelli noted that men more willingly forgive the death of a father than the loss of an inheritance. But even more than this, he understood that a man who receives a gift he cannot reciprocate becomes psychologically bound to the giver in ways he may not consciously recognize. Let me give you an example from Renaissance politics. A merchant prince made it his practice to offer unsolicited help to rising young nobles. He would provide loans without interest, introductions to powerful figures, invitations to events that would otherwise be inaccessible. He asked for nothing in return. But the debt accumulated. And years later, when these young nobles had become powerful men, when the merchant needed votes in the council, when he needed obstacles removed, these men found themselves compelled to help him. Not because he demanded it, but because the psychological weight of unpaid debt had become unbearable. This is generosity as investment. This is giving as a long-term strategy. And before you judge it as manipulation, consider how often this happens in your own life without conscious intent. Parents give to children and expect behavioral returns. Employers offer benefits and expect loyalty. Nations provide aid and expect political alignment. The mechanism is everywhere. The only question is whether you will remain blind to it or learn to see it and wield it consciously. But here is where this becomes dangerous. Some men use this tactic to trap others. They give gifts specifically designed to create debts that can never be repaid, then use those debts to extract compliance. This is not strategy. This is predation. The line between strategic generosity and manipulation lies in the purity of the exchange. If your giving genuinely benefits the receiver even if they never give anything back, it is strategy. If your giving is designed to trap them in an obligation they never agreed to, it is exploitation. The master practitioner gives real value. He invests in people who genuinely deserve investment. And yes, he understands that this investment creates invisible equity. But he also understands that trying to cash out that equity too aggressively destroys the very relationship that makes it valuable. Think about someone who has invested in you without asking for anything in return. Notice how you feel about them. Notice the subtle pull to reciprocate even when they insist it is unnecessary. That pull is the mechanism. That pull is what we are discussing. And now you understand it. Tactic number 7. The strategy of controlled revelation. Secrets have gravity. They pull people into orbit. And the man who knows how to reveal secrets, at the right moments, in the right doses, creates a gravitational field that others cannot resist. But notice I said controlled revelation. I did not say confession. I did not say radical transparency. Because the man who reveals everything has no mystery left. And the man who reveals nothing cannot create the intimacy that bonds people to him. There was a cardinal in Rome who understood this art perfectly. He was known for his discretion, for his vault-like protection of information. But occasionally, rarely, he would share something personal with a selected individual. A small vulnerability, a minor secret, a piece of himself that felt precious precisely because he shared so little. And that revelation bound the recipient to him more completely than any oath of loyalty ever could. Because the recipient felt chosen. He felt trusted. He felt like he had entered an inner circle that most would never see. This is psychological bonding at its most refined. The secret does not even need to be particularly significant. What matters is the framing. What matters is the sense that something rare is being shared, that walls are being lowered specifically for this person, that trust is being extended as a gift. Now, the shadow of this tactic is obvious. It can be used to create false intimacy. Politicians do this constantly, sharing calculated vulnerabilities to seem more human while revealing nothing that actually matters. Manipulators in relationships do this too, offering up small confessions to create a sense of closeness while their real selves remain hidden behind carefully constructed walls. The ethical application is different. It is about genuine connection strategically expressed. It is about understanding that intimacy is built through revelation, but that revelation must be paced to create maximum bonding. You do not tell your life story on the first meeting, but you do offer a glimpse that makes the other person want to know more. You build the relationship one revelation at a time, each one going slightly deeper, each one confirming that the previous trust was warranted. Think about your own pattern of self-revelation. Do you hide too much, remaining an island that no one can reach? Or do you reveal too much, flooding others with information that overwhelms rather than bonds? The mastery lies in the middle path, the controlled unfolding, the slow burn of shared truth. And while you are thinking about that, I want you to think about something else. Every tactic we discuss here has a light application and a dark one. Every principle can build or destroy. The difference lies entirely in the intention and the context of the one who wields it. If you are here to learn how to exploit, you will find tools for exploitation. But they will eventually destroy you, because manipulation without ethics creates enemies who never forget. If you are here to learn how to understand the game so that you can play it wisely, so that you can protect yourself and build genuine influence, then these tools will serve you well. The choice is yours. The consequences will follow accordingly. Tactic number 8. The art of strategic silence. In a world drowning in noise, silence has become the most undervalued currency. Every man with a platform shouts. Every person with an opinion broadcasts. Every moment of internal experience is captured, captioned, and shared before it has even finished being felt. And in this cacophony, the man who knows when to be silent becomes almost supernatural in his presence. Machiavelli watched rulers carefully. And he noted that the ones who spoke least often held power longest. Not because they had nothing to say, but because their silence created space for others to reveal themselves, to make mistakes, to show their cards while the silent ruler held his close. Consider what happens in a negotiation when one party stops speaking. The silence becomes uncomfortable. The other party begins to fill it. They clarify positions that did not need clarifying. They make concessions they were not asked to make. They explain themselves more thoroughly than strategic wisdom would advise. All because the silence was intolerable and they rushed to fill it. This is the power of strategic silence. It creates a vacuum that others cannot resist filling. And in filling it, they give away information, leverage, and position. But beyond negotiation, there is a deeper power here. The man who is not constantly speaking is the man who is constantly observing. He sees the dynamics that the talkers miss. He notices the micro-expressions, the shifts in posture, the subtle tensions between others in the room. He collects intelligence while others are busy performing. And when he finally does speak, the contrast amplifies his words. The rare voice commands attention the constant voice cannot. His statements land with weight because they emerge from silence rather than from an endless stream of noise. I want you to try something after this video. In your next conversation, practice extending silence just slightly beyond what feels comfortable. Not awkwardly. Not aggressively. Just a beat longer than usual before responding. Notice how the dynamic shifts. Notice how the other person fills the space. Notice how your eventual words carry more gravity. This practice alone, this single discipline, can transform your presence more than almost any other change you could make. Comment below with the word silence if you are ready to reclaim this power. Let me see who among you understands that sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. Tactic number 9. The strategy of inevitable framing. Human beings have an extraordinary capacity to accept what they believe is already decided. The proposal that seems negotiable will be negotiated, but the proposal that seems inevitable will be accepted without resistance. The master strategist understands this and frames his objectives not as requests but as foregone conclusions. There was an advisor to a famous king who never asked for permission. He would simply begin implementing his plans in ways that made them seem already approved. By the time the king noticed, the initiative was underway. And rather than appearing to reverse a decision that seemed already made, the king would simply allow it to continue. The advisor understood that humans are far more willing to accept what is than to actively choose what will be. This principle operates at every level. In sales, the closing technique of assuming the sale works because it reframes the question from whether the customer will buy to which option the customer will choose. In relationships, the partner who asks, "Do you want to go to dinner this weekend?" gets resistance, while the partner who asks, "Should we go to dinner Friday or Saturday?" gets compliance. The frame of inevitability bypasses the decision point entirely. But here is where this becomes truly powerful. It works not only on others but on yourself. The goals you frame as inevitable begin to feel inevitable. Your psychology organizes around them differently. Obstacles that would have stopped a hopeful attempt cannot stop a determined march toward what must be. By framing your own objectives as foregone conclusions, you access reserves of persistence and creativity that conditional goals can never unlock. Think about the difference between "I hope to become successful" and "I am in the process of becoming successful." The first is a wish. The second is a trajectory. The first invites doubt. The second assumes completion and focuses only on the journey. This is why affirmations work, when they work at all. Not because the universe responds to your words, but because your psychology responds to certainty. And the man who speaks and thinks in certainties becomes a different creature than the man lost in maybes. So let me ask you directly, what is inevitable in your life? Not what do you want? Not what are you hoping for? What is inevitable? And if you cannot answer that question with clarity, you have identified your next piece of work. Tactic number 10. The mastery of psychological positioning. We have arrived at the final tactic. And in many ways, it is the foundation upon which all the others rest. Because none of the previous 9 work if you do not understand where you stand in the psychological landscape of those around you. Every interaction, Every relationship, every negotiation takes place on a psychological map. There are higher positions and lower positions. There are positions of strength and positions of weakness. And most men, tragically, never consciously consider where they stand on this map. They simply react, defend, hope, and wonder why they keep ending up in the same losing positions. Machiavelli spent his entire career studying this map. He understood that before you can influence anyone, you must first understand where you exist in their mental model. Are you above them or below them? Are you a threat or a resource? Are you someone they want to impress or someone they take for granted? These positions are not fixed. They can be shifted, but they can only be shifted if you first see them clearly. Consider how differently you behave around someone you perceive as above you versus someone you perceive as below you. Your voice changes. Your posture shifts. Your word choice adapts. This happens unconsciously because psychological positioning is primal. It is wired into your nervous system from millions of years of hierarchical existence. Now, most men try to rise in position through obvious displays of value. They brag. They compete. They try to impress. And sometimes this works, but often it backfires because the very act of trying to impress signals that you perceive yourself as lower. The man who feels no need to prove himself is assumed to have nothing to prove. The subtler path is repositioning through behavior rather than claim. The man who speaks slightly slower than the room seems more certain. The man who holds eye contact a moment longer than comfortable seems more confident. The man who declines opportunities that others clamor for seems to have better options. None of these require saying a single word about your value. They demonstrate it through behavior that the unconscious mind reads and respects. But the deepest level of psychological positioning is internal. It is the relationship you have with yourself before you enter any room. The man who has genuinely done the work, who has built skill, who has overcome challenges, who has created real value in the world, does not need to strategize his positioning. He simply carries himself with the ease of someone who knows his worth. And others sense this and respond accordingly. This is why all the tactics in the world cannot save a man who has not done the internal work. They become costumes on a hollow frame. They might fool people temporarily, but they cannot create the sustained influence that comes from genuine self-possession. So I leave you with this question as we conclude these 10 tactics. What work have you neglected? What development have you postponed? What transformation have you told yourself you would start tomorrow, next week, next year? Because the tactics are tools, but you are the one who wields them. And a master tool in the hands of an amateur achieves nothing. Now we have reached the end of these forbidden tactics. But ending is not the same as finishing. Because the real work begins now. The real test is not whether you understood these principles, but whether you will apply them. Whether you will practice strategic absence until it becomes natural. Whether you will learn to wield silence as a weapon. Whether you will position yourself consciously in every room you enter. Most men who watch this video will do nothing. They will feel informed. They will feel entertained. They will perhaps share it with a friend. And then they will return to the same patterns that brought them here in the first place. They will remain in the same positions, making the same mistakes, wondering why life never seems to change. But a few, perhaps you are one of them, will actually use what they have learned. They will practice. They will fail. They will adjust. They will practice again. And slowly, sometimes painfully, they will transform into the kind of men who do not just watch videos about power but actually wield it. If you are in the second group, I want to hear from you. Comment below with the word sovereign. Let me see who has decided that these are not just ideas but commitments. Let me see who has chosen to become the author of their own influence rather than the subject of someone else's. And subscribe. Not because I am asking you to, but because you recognize that knowledge is not a one-time event. It is a continuous process. And the man who masters these 10 tactics will need to master what comes after. There is always deeper to go. There is always more to learn. There is always another level beyond the level you just reached. I will be here, sharing what I have learned, for those who are serious about the journey. The knowledge of princes was never meant for common ears. But you are not common. If you were, you would have left long ago. You stayed. You listened. You thought. And now you know things that most will never even suspect exist. The question that remains is simple but not easy. What will you do with what you now know? Will you use these tactics to build something meaningful? To protect those you love? To advance causes worthy of your effort? Or will you let them rust in the corner of your mind? Theoretical knowledge that never quite becomes practical power. Machiavelli wrote for princes, but his real audience was anyone willing to see the world as it truly is rather than as moralists pretend it should be. He respected his readers enough to tell them uncomfortable truths. And in that tradition, I have done the same. Go now. But go different than you came. Go with eyes that see the games being played around you. Go with the quiet confidence of someone who understands what most ignore. Go as the sovereign of your own domain, however small that domain may currently be. And when the world tests you, as it will, remember what you learned here. Remember the power of absence and the weight of silence. Remember that validation is currency and debt is bondage and positioning is everything. Remember that the man who controls the frame controls the outcome. Most importantly, remember that none of this matters if you lack the character to wield it wisely. Power without principle is just chaos in expensive clothing. Influence without integrity is just manipulation with a longer timeline. The tactics serve the man, but only if the man is worthy of being served. Are you worthy? That question is not for me to answer. It is for you to prove. Until next time, remain ungovernable. Remain strategic. Remain silent until your words can change the room. Subscribe now, and I will see you in the next video where we go even deeper.